Today we are going to learn the elements and principles of design. Elements of art are the building blocks, like words or sentences. Principles of design are like stories or the product of the elements. Elements of art. We will focus on elements of art today. The building blocks of art are line, shape, space, value, form, texture, and color. If you are taking notes, you will copy the notes sheet that I have on this slide. Line. A line is a mark on a surface with length and direction created by a tool. You will copy the definition and an example of a line on your notes sheet in the line box. Shape. Shape is a two-dimensional area that is defined by a line or a color change. Shapes can be geometric or organic. In your shape box, you need to write two-dimensional area defined by line or color change. There are two different types of shapes. Geometric shapes, which are uniform measurements that do not often appear in nature, and there are organic shapes, which are associated with things from the natural world like plants and animals. On your shape box, you have a T. You will put geometric shapes on one side and organic shapes on the other. You will write the definition and draw one example for each of those shapes. Space. The area around objects. There is positive space, which is the object itself, and negative space, which is the space around the object. For example, on your notes, I want you to draw a square and draw a circle that is colored in inside of that square, like the one you see on your screen. Off to the side, write positive space, and you will draw a line from positive space to the circle. The circle is the object in this image, and the negative space is the space around the object. So that would be the inside of this square, the space around the object. Value. This is the lightness or darkness of a color. I have shown a value scale. So this is a scale of different values. If you add white to a color, this is called a tint. If you add black to a color, this is called a shade. On your notes, you need to make a value scale with 5 different values. I start with the darkest value and work my way down to the lightest value, which is often the color of your paper. You also need to write down that a tint is when you add white to a color, and a shade is when you add black to a color. Form. Form is a 3-dimensional object. On your box that says form, you can write a 3D object, and you can draw a cube. So a 3-dimensional object is an object that you can pick up and touch and feel. we can draw objects to appear as they are 3D by using different values of color. We will talk about that in a different lesson. Texture. Texture is the surface quality or feel of an object. So if the object is smooth, rough, soft, etc. Actual texture can be felt. Implied texture is the way that something looks as though it would feel. For texture, you need to put the feel of an object. You also need to define actual texture and define implied texture. An example of actual texture would be a clay pot that was made that you can feel the texture of the clay being used. Implied texture would be a drawing of a tree that shows its bark. Color. We will talk more in depth about color at a later time, but color is another element of design. Hue is another word for color. Intensity is the brightness of a color. And value is the lightness or darkness of a color. You need to write all three of these down. We went over the elements of art today. Here is a quick review over what we went over. We went over line, shape, color, value, texture, space, and form.